Welcome and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Jamaica Gale. I am the Executive Director of the Global Innovation Forum. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the goal of GIF is to connect entrepreneurs and small businesses with the resources that they need to succeed in the global marketplace. So we emphasize how global engagement can improve the resiliency of small businesses and elevate entrepreneurs to help foster an inclusive policy landscape. So before we begin today, I would like to take a moment to thank our co-hosts, the U.S. Commerce Department's International Trade Administration, and our speakers for today for making this event possible. I would also like to remind everyone that the discussion and any Q&A will be on the record and also recorded. A link to the recording and all of the resources that are shared during today's event will also be sent to all registered attendees shortly after. We ask that you please use the chat function to ask any questions, and note that the Q&A is not enabled, so all questions will go into the chat. Lastly, this event is scheduled for 1 hour, so the moderators will do their best to address as many questions as possible. So today we are thrilled to be joined by an incredible group of entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and trade experts. As we approach the end of Women's History Month, we'll be discussing how women entrepreneurs are growing resilient global businesses and explore how digital tools are making it easier than ever to reach international customers. For women-owned businesses especially, global markets can open the door to many opportunities. Studies have found that when women export, not only do they earn more, but they also employ more people and are more, and on average, more productive than women-owned businesses that do not export. Still today, women are significantly underrepresented in international trade. With 95% of the world's customers and 80% of the world purchasing power outside of the United States, international trade really is an untapped resource for women-owned businesses. And while the number of those businesses is growing, women still face disproportionate barriers when it comes to global expansion. So today we're here to dive into some of the best practices and advice and resources that can help address and mitigate some of those barriers. So today's program is a part of the Startup Global Initiative, which is a strategic partnership between ITA and GIF with the purpose of providing focused advice to small American businesses that are interested in global expansion. So today we will hear from 3 panels. First, a conversation with women entrepreneurs, followed by advice and resources for going global from the private sector, and last, government resources for international growth. So first, I would like to turn to our first panel and ask those speakers to join me on screen. Thank you. So I'm going to hand it over to our moderator for this panel, Melissa Graham, the Director of Leadership and Social Impact for Vital Voices Global Partnership. I'll let Melissa share details about Vital Voices, but they are an incredible network of global just women leaders and trusted friends and advisors of GIF. So thank you. And with that, Melissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jamaica. My name is, as she mentioned, Melissa Graham. I'm a director with the Leadership and Social Impact Department at Vital Voices Global Partnership, which is an international nonprofit that invests in women leaders who are solving the world's greatest challenges. As an organization, Vital Voices has worked around the world for over 20 years, really thinking about how can we support women leaders in business, in politics, in human rights, in a number of different areas to spur significant positive change and impact in their communities. Personally, I focus on a number of our entrepreneurship programs, including the Vivi Grow Fellowship, a 12-month accelerator for women owners of small and medium-sized businesses, really social enterprises around the world. We also have programs such as the We Empower UN SDG Challenge, which is a global business competition for women entrepreneurs who are advancing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And brief plug for anyone who's in the audience, applications for that program are actually open right now for the next 16 days. And we can drop a link to that in the chat. So I am so thrilled to be here today for this conversation because there's no time in recent history that it has been more important for us to learn from women entrepreneurs and business leaders who have creatively built businesses from the ground up and have in fact not only grown them domestically, but have also tapped into new markets internationally. And so I'm so thrilled today to be joined by 2 exceptional women business owners who have done just that. And I'd like to start off by giving brief introductions for each of them, and then we'll have an opportunity to learn more about their businesses and learn from their experiences. So first, I would like to introduce Claudia Mursa. Claudia is the co-founder and CEO of a Corby group of companies based in Plano, Texas. She has led the company's rapid evolution from a small Spanish language translation company that was launched in 2003 to one of the world's largest women-owned and US-based language service providers. Her company helps clients overcome language and cultural barriers to succeed in the global business marketplace, something that has been even more critical in recent years. With annual revenues of 55 million USD and growing, Corby now offers multilingual interpretation in 170 languages, as well as staffing, technology, and localization services. They have offices in the US, Europe, India, Latin America, and in sub-Saharan Africa as well. And they continue today to push the boundaries of technological innovation and are also working to acquire new businesses and expand their suite of services offered. And we'll hear more about that in just a moment. I am also so thrilled today to be joined by Dr. Weishan Lai, a family physician who in 2007 founded Acoustic Sheep. So Dr. Lai struggled with getting back to sleep after taking patient phone calls in the middle of the night, and she needed to be able to listen to some meditative music to help her relax and get back to sleep. But as I know I've personally experienced, and many in the audience have as well, normal headphones are bulky and difficult, and it's impossible to get to sleep while wearing them, or they fall off, or any number of other challenges. Since there were no headphones specifically designed for sleeping on the market, she invented that solution, which has led to her company and her product, Sleep Phones. She found that this product, the Sleep Phone product, worked so well for her that she began to offer them to all of her patients who are taking sleeping pills. Working with her husband, video game developer Jason Wolf, they began to create these products out of their own home at their kitchen table initially. And since then, they have grown their business to a really remarkable business. They actually were completely self-sufficient for the first 100,000 products that they produced before they even hired their first employee and set up their first warehouse located in Erie, Pennsylvania. They have focused on the business entirely since 2013 when they left their previous full-time employment. And since then, they have really scaled their business, offering a number of not only the Sleep Phone products, but also associated accessories and other items. And I encourage everyone to take a look at their website as well. I was checking it out earlier before this call myself. And so we are so excited to be joined by Dr. Lai and Claudia today for this conversation. So I would love for us to begin with really just hearing a little bit more about each of your businesses, how you found yourself engaging with global markets, how has that been important for your business's growth, and how did you develop your strategy around really tapping into those global markets? So just to tell us a little bit more about your business and how you really entered that space. And Claudia, I'm going to ask you to share with us first.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you all of you for this amazing opportunity to share our experience here. Well, so one of the things that about the strategy and how I found out about the international markets, I realized that the global economy is not merciful. And if we were going to stay competitive and in business, it was very important to get out of my comfort zone and get out of my zip code. So one day I packed my bag and decided to start traveling abroad. I needed to start networking and getting to know people. And I said, well, we are running a company that provides services in 177 languages. And also we are a technology company, so therefore we should not be here, or I should not be here comfortable in my own zip code. So my bag is, or my computer or my desk is basically a backpack. I carry a pillow around the wall, and I travel. So for instance, on Monday, I have a meeting here in Kenya with our interpreters, and I am here right now sitting at a camp in Kenya, trying to enjoy this wonderful country. But the strategy, I basically started expanding country by country. And also we purchase, so the Accorby group of companies, we predominantly provide language services in 177 languages. And we acquired recently a company that is a software company in digital transformation called Run My Process. Run My Process has the beauty that is already in around 60 countries. So that is a true global business, and we are basically exporting right now the services, the software services, but also we are importing a lot of language into the United States. I don't know, maybe Dr. or Melissa, I think I am okay for now, unless you have other questions.
Many came to mind, but we'll come back to those in a moment. And next, I would ask Dr. Lai, same question to you.
Yeah, Claudia, you're inspiring me to travel. It sounds amazing. Kenya. Well, so our journey, as Melissa mentioned, we invented the sleep phones, and I have one here that I'll just kind of demo. So these are just very thin headphones with tiny little speakers inside, and they stay on your head so you can listen comfortably to music, whatever you'd like in bed. We have a wireless version, Bluetooth, of course, and our fanciest version is actually induction charging. So not only does it have wireless, communication for sound, it also has wireless charging, which is very convenient. So all of this started, about 15 years ago, and it was because I was having trouble sleeping. And as Melissa said, we quit our day jobs about 5 years in, and focused more on the business. And it was at that time that we decided to attend International CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. We were so busy. It was incredible. Our 10 by 10 little tiny booth, we had won one of the awards, and we were just swamped with buyers. We had 3 buyers from the UAE, who were trying to get us to sign on the dotted line to, so that we would distribute to them so they could represent us in that country. And so we had to take a step back and kind of figure out, okay, what is our good international strategy? we didn't even have any paperwork ready or anything like that. So we sought out some advisors. We talked to our the local people who help with small businesses, and all of the export centers. Honestly, the U.S. Commercial Service, just use these resources. That's what the government is there for, because they want you to export, because it brings in net dollars to the U.S. This is a net gain for the U.S. And so that's why all these government services are set up to help us export. You get really good service that way. And help. And so I definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. And so we learned everything we could. And at this point, about a third of our sales are international. We've worked with over 30 countries around the world with a distribution kind of relationship. But we also, just through our website, we sell direct to consumers as well. So just e-commerce, we ship directly to customers all over the world. We've been on all 7 continents, including Antarctica, which is kind of crazy. And yeah, I think being global has, throughout the pandemic, it's really given some insight into people's reactions, whether they tend to pull back when the virus is in their area and they're feeling insecure, or if they are having trouble sleeping and anxious, and so then they need our product. And then with some of the shipping issues, whether it's part of our supply chain or getting the products to our customers. Really learned a lot, and it's been really interesting to kind of see the world from the business perspective. And it's been a fun journey being, I guess, international and exporting.
Mm-hmm. Especially over the last few years when so many of the normal processes that you would use have needed to be adapted, or, you know, needing to pivot or think very creatively. Actually, I want to stay, Dr. Lai, with you a moment, because you mentioned something very interesting. And Claudia and you have businesses that have some key differences, right, between being a products-focused business and a services-focused business. So for each of you, I would love to ask if you could describe some of the key digital tools that you have relied on as you have built your global strategy to find customers, to engage with customers, to operate across, you know, international boundaries. So it would be great to hear from you first, and then move to Claudia with the same question.
Sure. Honestly, you name it, we've probably explored it and are using a lot of them. I guess first, our e-commerce platform is built on Shopify, but at the same time, we wanted to have full control over how the presentation of our website, and to optimize for like a Google search and stuff like that. And so instead of running most of the website on Shopify, we have our shopping cart and checkout through there, and all the payment systems, you know, so all of the security issue things we keep there. And then we run our own separate website that directs to there. And so, you know, so that's definitely one of the key things that you have to nail down is your shopping cart and payment platforms as an e-commerce company. And then we of course use Google advertising and all of the social media platforms. We try to engage people on and to kind of help push our brand, and just so that people understand what our brand is all about, not necessarily to be pushy products and stuff like that. And then like the full Google suite, we communicate through there. Constantly we're having these, especially during the pandemic, we're having meetings through Google. Yeah, really, there's a lot, you know, all of the digital tools out there. We definitely leverage technology, especially because my husband is a software person. He, you know, designed games and stuff like that. And so he uses a lot of that. He infuses our company with that. And he's actually written some of his own code base in order to help support our internal processes. So like we have an internal wiki and all of that kind of stuff. It's just, it's good practice nowadays to leverage technology, because it's really necessary to be competitive globally.
Thank you. And, you know, as I said, I've mentioned, I work with entrepreneurs as well. And something I've noticed over the last 2 years in particular, as some entrepreneurs who have businesses that were not traditionally focused on digital solutions for their businesses, but have needed to move that direction, have also found it a very interesting experience of balancing quickly adapting new technology with then finding the right technology or digital solution as well. And so being very, very thoughtful about the current and then future needs of the business as you think about of all of these different solutions that exist, the one that is right for you is something I've actually also heard quite a lot of entrepreneurs comment on in their own journeys as well.
I do want to just make a quick comment on that, because you made me think about cybersecurity, and I want to make sure that we, like, at least we touch on that it's so important, and to find the right partners with your technology solutions to make sure that, you know, your stuff is secure, you're working with a company that you trust.
Absolutely critical in terms of how we protect and, you know, maintain the trust of our customers, as well as how we protect the intellectual property of our businesses, and, you know, make sure that if we are also engaging in contractual partnerships or any other activities, that those are also maintained securely as well, for a whole host of different reasons. Completely agree, and really valuable point. Thank you. Claudia, next I'd love to hear from your perspective as more of a services focused business. What digital tools have you begun to use when you manage teams across the entire world? So I'm sure that the structure you use will be a little bit different. So it would be great to hear from you. What have you found helpful? What was your process and approach to using digital tools to support your global expansion?
Thank you, Melissa. So one of the things, a great test for our digital endurance, I will say, was whenever we had the COVID or during the pandemic, overnight, we have to send all our team members home. And our team members in our technology just switch off or send everyone home, and it was painless. Everyone went home and we were able to work in a seamless way. And another thing that it was very interesting is that, or I feel that every service business during our digital economy and all this global economy will become a technology company at some point or the other. So relying on digital tools and has been extremely important. And that is why we made the acquisition of Run My Process, which is a technology company doing digital transformation and integrations of APIs and all that. So that's already part of our DNA, Run My Process. But the key tools that we use Google significantly. We also use Facebook and LinkedIn. LinkedIn advertising, Facebook and Google have been extremely helpful, very kind. In fact, Google has supported us as a success story, and they have been just very kind with the growth of our business. But due to the amount of different time zones, we had found that doing a lot of SEO and advertising online really helped us with the digital, well, the 24/7 global economy, keeping our door open and maintaining those leads active. Also, we use the digital the Google Suite, and also we use Microsoft as well. And for payments, we are still using the traditional wire system as Wells Fargo, but also we use a lot of PayPal in countries where our language have no access to traditional banking.
Really interesting. Thank you, Claudia, and especially being creative around meeting, your providers, right? Your linguists where they are based on the different contexts that different people are operating within and modifying your approach accordingly. So a lot of creativity there. We actually have some great questions coming into the chat that I want to also get to. And they're very different questions, but they're both really getting at how did you decide upon your expansion strategy and your operational strategy for becoming a global business? What did you see? What sort of factors did you consider? The specific questions are for Claudia. I'll go to you first. Your business has engaged in acquisition. You've done other models as well. How are you making decisions around the specific approach that you'll use to penetrate a new market? To expand the question a little bit further, what has jumped out at you? What do you look for when you're deciding the particular strategy that you may use when approaching a new market?
The question is amazing, and thank you, Amber, for asking that question. The acquisition, in fact, was very helpful because immediately gave us access to markets that we didn't have. However, there are other type of strategies that have been extremely helpful. So one of the things is that women, we are pretty good at networking and we really help each other. So one of the things is that I have done a lot of international travel and networking, and we are able to identify local partnerships in the country so we basically create relationships at the local level with a local company, but also we have opened companies ourselves in different countries. So for instance, in Colombia, Latin America, and also India, we have the Accorbi companies incorporated. The same thing for France. Run My Process is incorporated in France. In the process of being, we also had the same incorporation in Delaware, but it has been a combination of acquisitions. It has been a combination of local relationships with trusted friends and trusted people. And also the other has been direct relationships and that we can start in those different countries.
Thank you so much, Claudia. And I think we have time for just one final question, which to Dr. Lay, to you, you may have actually noticed this in the chat already, a great question around how you have approached the distribution chain for your business. You had mentioned at that expo being contacted with, by buyers. I'm sure you've had many other conversations with other buyers since then. How have you thought about, as you've expanded internationally, the overall supply chain to get your products into the hands ultimately of consumers?
So there are a few different ways that you can approach it. I think the lowest hanging fruit really is just the people who are interested in working with you. So when you go to a show or just, meet people and then they want to represent your product in their country as a distributor, that is probably the easiest way. And oftentimes they're the most motivated as well. And so they'll do a lot of the marketing for you. You have to structure it such that they do that. So it's a little bit more hands off. And then, if you have choices, so if in a particular country you have a few different potential distribution choices, then you sometimes you might just want to pick the best one and see how they do. And what we did was to kind of hold their feet to the fire and say, okay, we expect you to sell blank for this first year, and then we would expect you to increase your buys from us and your sales by whatever percent, year after year, until you reach a stable point, which may be something like this. And how did we determine that? Well, we looked at and we mostly work through exclusive distribution, just because as a product company, it's a lot easier that way, so that there's no, they're not competing in their country on price point, especially for a premium product like ours, where it's a brand, it's not a commodity or anything like that. So it's, we want to maintain our price integrity throughout the world. And so that's why you have to work with one distributor per country. And so we looked at the country's GDP. We looked at what the average income is per household for that for that country, and then how many people live in that country. And so then we can kind of predict, okay, we expect this many people to buy in that country. And so then if you kind of run some metrics and stuff like that, and you say, okay, if I'm selling this amount in the US and this country has this many people that could potentially be equivalent to the US buyer, then I would expect to sell blank amount in this country. And so that's kind of how we did it. For knowing what was a good level for that particular country. You can also look at your Google Analytics and see where your interest is. And because we're an e-commerce company and we sell direct to consumers, we also know where that interest is coming from overseas, and where the trade barriers are least, because oftentimes, when you ship that one item overseas, there could be a significant tariff on their end that they have to pay, which then they complain about. But only in certain countries. And so you kind of get to know that. And then you can work around that and hopefully find distribution in those countries so that they can still get your products, but not have to suffer the, all of the logistic headaches of trying to buy things from overseas. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. So much actionable advice in that, I think, for the entrepreneurs in the audience that are listening. That actually is the time that we had for our portion of this overall conversation. So I want to say thank you both so much for joining, for sharing your experience, and for sharing so much insightful advice and guidance to all of the entrepreneurs and everyone listening in today. It was a pleasure to speak with both of you. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Jamaica.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate you both sharing your stories. I think it's a real pleasure to hear from just, women who've done it and provide just kind of like best practices. So I appreciate you taking the time today. So now I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by 3 advisors today who can provide some insights into how women-owned businesses can succeed in the global marketplace. So I'll ask them to join me on screen now. And we have, so I will be joined by Maria Luisa Boyce, the Vice President of UPS Global Public Affairs, Diana Dukas, the U.S. Policy Program Manager for Economic Impact at Meta, and Rena Wolfing, the North American Policy and Campaigns Manager for WISE. Spotlight quickly, and if it's all right with you, Maria Luisa, I will turn to you first for our first question. So I just want to ask, what are some of the opportunities that women entrepreneurs experience when they go global?
Jamaica, thank you so much, and thank you for the Global Innovation Forum for having this event, and I'm honored to be with my fellow panelists here. I think from a UPS perspective, it has been an amazing experience. We launched our Women Exporter program in 2018, and to the question specifically of what have been those opportunities, I think I may start by saying that the first thing, we have trained over 17,000 women-owned and small business-owned since 2018. And it's always, for me, amazing in some of the developing countries when you go through the training of how to export and e-commerce, the change in the face of the entrepreneur when they say, oh, I can export. Like, I never thought about it, it's too risky. And so once they start seeing that there's an opportunity to expand and to other economies where they can hedge if their domestic economy is not doing well, but they can maybe export to another country where the economy is doing better, that is one of the opportunities that they have seen. The other part is, and this really came during the pandemic, once the pandemic started, we saw in the first 9 months of 2020, when the pandemic started, changes in e-commerce that we thought were going to take 5 to 10 years. And what does that mean is that we saw a lot of women entrepreneurs or that launched to be entrepreneurs in e-commerce, like our prior panel. I loved listening to them. And we saw in there the opportunity for them to be able to really let their innovation show and be able to have their products. And so that allows them to connect with other customers that otherwise they wouldn't be able to connect. And so going global from that respect has been more of a reality because of the growth of e-commerce. To end on that piece, I think, and I know we'll talk probably about the challenges, but in terms of opportunities and trade, one of the things that we have seen of our women entrepreneurs is that it really gives them the opportunity to move from the informal economy to the formal economy in many countries. And because it forces them to have an infrastructure, a digital infrastructure, to have a bank account, to receive payments via credit card. And once you start going into the benefits of exporting and having to have that infrastructure, that moves you into the formal economy and allows you to expand and have economic growth. So I'm going to stop there for those opportunities that we have seen.
Thank you. That's incredibly helpful. And I know UPS has some really great reports about their small business customers that are exporting. So I'll make sure folks get the links to some of those. So next, I want to turn to Diana and bring you in on the same question. If you could just speak to some of the opportunities that you see women entrepreneurs experiencing when they go global.
Thank you, Jamaica, and thanks to everyone for joining us and having us participate in this amazing conversation. So exactly what's been said already, right? The pandemic certainly accelerated a transition from businesses to operate from offline to online, or if they were existing online, to really create more of a sophisticated presence. And that's because, as you're thinking about it, in a world where we all had to shut down, there was no more physical foot traffic. There were vanishing storefronts. Small businesses needed to do everything that they possibly could to pivot their operations and how they were going to survive. And one of the ways that we saw it was transitioning and moving to digital platforms. And so thinking about the opportunities there, exactly as Luisa said, thinking about, now that you've expanded online, you're not solely determined by who walks into your store, but who also can you find as your customers across the state, across the country, and even across the globe. And it was a great opportunity for businesses to really lean in and focus on, okay, I'm going to make sure that my target audience can find me because I have something unique that there's audiences across the globe that are interested in what I have to sell. And speaking of reports, Meta just launched our 9th edition of our State of Small Business report yesterday. That's a global report that we launched right at the beginning of the pandemic that really tracks the trends and challenges of small businesses and what they are experiencing. And one of the consistent data points that we've seen, of course, is this transition from offline to online. And on a global scale, 61% of women-led businesses who are using our platforms, which is where we surveyed them, said that they are using digital tools to find new customers and for their advertising. And then that's actually compared to 53% of small businesses led by men. So you're seeing women lean into digital tools and services in a slightly accelerated way. And there are a couple of ways that people really looked to do that, especially leveraging our platforms, which we're very glad to help fine tune and create new ones. One is the usage of personalized advertising, which really allows for a small business to have a lower barrier to entry into the market. It allows for small businesses to economically and efficiently use their very small marketing dollars to more efficiently find the customer that they're looking for. And then, of course, the rise of e-commerce shops and e-commerce platforms. We created something called Instagram and Facebook shops, which are really a way to personalize the online e-commerce experience. So it was an opportunity for small businesses who had to shutter their physical storefront to kind of recreate that online in a very personalized and customizable way to attract new customers and really allow them to curate the goods that their customers saw. And then, of course, as everyone here I'm sure will talk about, is the importance of free educational resources to business owners and to small businesses. And so we've been investing in free educational resources and marketing curriculum for businesses for over 10 years. And we really doubled down on that effort during the pandemic and continue to do so, because while going online is a way to help close the gap or really to expand your business, especially during COVID, it's not always the most intuitive. And so we wanted to make sure it was done as easy. We made it as easy as possible for these business owners to transition online. So I'll stop there because I could keep going, but very excited to just continue this conversation.
Absolutely. That's incredible. And I will second a plug to the State of Small Business report that Meta puts together. Those are very, very insightful. So Rena, I'd love to turn to you next and just, I guess, ask to add on to if there are any opportunities that you see for women entrepreneurs as they go global, and then maybe kind of transition that into some of the challenges that you see, or if WISE has any insights that they have developed on that front. I'll turn to you.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Rena. I'm the Northland Policy and Campaigns Manager for WISE. We're a global payments company building the best way to move money around the world. Currently, over 12 million people and businesses use WISE, and we process over US like $8 billion in cross-border payments every month, saving customers $1 billion every year compared to like a legacy banking system. For small businesses, in addition to transferring funds, we offer an international account with different currencies, a card to spend in any currency, and bank details to get paid in different countries as well. And our focus remains to be solving problems for people and businesses who live, work, and travel abroad. And that intro is relevant because we're seeing businesses do more international transactions than ever, with the world like opening back up, businesses going more global. And in particular, I think this is a great opportunity for women-owned businesses to start exporting, right? Because this is the time to hammer down and like really engage in this increasingly international market. So we actually at WISE did an internal survey. We found of the SMBs who cited issues with going abroad, over half of those small businesses actually cited international payments as a major barrier. And this disparity was actually even worse for women-owned businesses. Further, women are frequently considered to be quote unquote unsophisticated businesses by payments providers, where you often find women-owned businesses being disproportionately targeted for hidden fees and fees that aren't related to your action. So I think at minimum, and this is kind of getting into the second part of your question on barriers, making sure that women and women-owned businesses are getting proactively educated on payments issues, because this is a major, major barrier to going abroad and is impacting our day-to-day businesses. So I think specifically starting off with like looking at different ways that we can address payments issues today. A huge thing for WISE, this is actually why we're founded, is transparency, for example. So small businesses are often unaware of what they pay to send, spend, or receive money internationally, usually due to hidden fees from exchange rate markups. So that's because pricing can be misleading. Like payments providers can legally say $0 or no fee, while exchange rates are actually significantly inflated. So independent research, for example, found that small businesses in particular saw a markup of $2.3 billion in 2019 on buying and selling goods and services abroad. So again, like that $2.3 billion is just on inflated exchange rate markup, and an additional $66 million on small businesses making international payroll. So that's just one example of a challenge that I think that we can work together both on the payment side, but with small businesses directly to make sure that those inflated exchange rates aren't impacting small businesses, and in particular women-owned small businesses going global. So that's just one issue that we face. There are a couple, but I do want to let others weigh in on things that they're seeing in their fields.
Awesome, thank you so much. I think just all of those insights put together, just kind of really on the table what it means, what global markets can mean for women entrepreneurs. So I want to move next, maybe back to Maria Luisa and then Diana after, just to comment on some of the barriers that you see women-owned businesses facing as they go global. And then if you could also share some of the digital tools or resources that are available to help small businesses or women specifically to succeed globally. So Maria Luisa.
Thank you. Yes, Jamaica, thank you so much. So as I was thinking for this question, we did also, as you mentioned, we had several studies. We did a study last year on SMBs in 9 countries, developing and developed countries. And we had a gender approach to it. But what for me, what was fascinating is and it really highlighted some of the challenges that we see with the small businesses and with women-owned small businesses more. One is the need to have more capacity and understanding how to export. What are the terms? Because if you think about it, international trade was built more for larger companies that are exporting. And as Rina and Diana mentioned, we're seeing all this change and now entering into international trade. We saw the need to have more training. That was one of the things. And many in the surveys that we did, many of the small businesses did not know where to access the regulations or how to understand it. So that's one of the things that we definitely need simpler, and our governments are doing the best that they can, is sometimes is not able to connect with them. So that was one is the complexity, and we have focused on that on the training. The second one obstacle that we saw, and I think Diana and Rina see it in their world, but for us is that the digital infrastructure that is needed now, the formal digital infrastructure needed to be as a business. In some countries, we should not take for granted that access to data is still very expensive or not available for everybody. We assume that everybody has the phone and can do it, but we saw a lot in the rural communities of many of the countries. That's still one of the challenges. And for women entrepreneurs is understanding the system and the process and being able to cover the costs. So that was the second one that we saw from that part. Last but not least, and for women entrepreneurs, in terms of obstacles that we saw, is women own business sometimes don't make their time to do networking, or to be there, that they don't belong to the normal chambers or associations that we belong to, and that is something that we as a corporation, with many other corporations, are doing, is how do we help them to do more mentoring and understand the importance of doing that networking. Resources available. I will be a commercial to our signature partner, which is the ITC She Trades Initiative, that is ITC based in Geneva, where our UPS Foundation and UPS, we are partners with them and have developed a platform with virtual learning courses that can be accessible over the phone, low data, and it has an array of topics: finances, marketing, exports, logistics. That is a tool that is available, and that's ITC www.shetrades.com. I know I'm sounding like a commercial. That's one tool. But then the second tool, logistics, is always the cost, one of the highest costs for small businesses to export, as we heard in the last panel. And so it's important for you to look at, for example, our program that we have, the Women Exporter Program. What type of thinking outside the box? That's a joke, right? Because we move boxes. But never mind. Thinking outside the box in terms of what discounts or what promotions, because there's a lot of sense of community around women entrepreneurship right now, that you can find opportunities that can help you. So I will recommend for the women entrepreneurs to look into those alternatives.
Thank you. That was fantastic. I'm going to turn next to Diana with the same question. If you could just comment briefly on some of the challenges that you see maybe Meta small businesses or women-owned businesses experiencing, and then some of the resources that are available to help.
Sure. So I think it won't surprise anybody that access to capital still remains a concern for small businesses, and especially women small businesses. Coming out of this last report, 28% of women small businesses expected challenges or cash flow was a concern, and 26% was actually a concern of having lack of customers, which is higher than their male counterparts across the globe. And one of the ways that we have leaned into those opportunities to help support business owners, especially finding access to capital. And that's not something you would normally think of as Meta as this tie, but in two ways. And so one, we launched a small business funding portal, which actually brings together lots of alternate opportunities for access to capital outside of your traditional bank branches. And so we created this funding portal that allows for CDFIs and community organizations and other companies with grants to highlight their opportunities for small businesses across the portal, so that businesses could really have a better understanding of where they could additionally find some opportunities for capital. And then was another opportunity to solve an issue that if you are a supplier, you know that sometimes the repayment from the work that you've done, sometimes waiting the 30, 60, 90 days it takes for your client to pay you back, can really make or break your business. It can determine whether or not you can pay your OPEX, whether you can take on a new contract. And so we actually launched something called Meta Invoice Fast Track, which is really trying to actually put our balance sheet to work. And so if you are, we've partnered with 6 certified supplier organizations, WeBank being one of them for female owners. But if you are a member of WeBank or one of the other organizations, you are eligible to sell an outstanding invoice to Meta. We turn that money around in just a matter of days. And then when your client is ready to pay you back as a small business, they actually pay our partner who is operating this fund back instead. And so we consistently have a self-sustaining $100 million commitment to helping to ease the liquidity constraints of that many suppliers have. And so again, that's Meta Invoice Fast Track. I also don't want to sound like a commercial, but we're so excited, along with Maria Luisa, that we have so many things to offer. And then the last thing I will say in terms of the challenges, I think that we're understanding that women still need some balance. They need some help when it comes to caring for their families, caring for their domestic needs, as well as running a business. We saw 36% of women saying that hybrid work is currently completely necessary, and to how they're going to continue moving through the pandemic and beyond. And so that is another issue that we're all watching.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn to Rena next, and unfortunately last for this panel. I'm sure you all have more things to share, and I would love for you to send them my way, so I can include them in the follow-up email to everyone. But Rena, I'm gonna end with you. Can you share some of the just resources or tools that WISE has available to help small businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. For starters, other than offering, significantly faster, cheaper, and more transparent payments for small businesses, what we were hearing most from our businesses was the need for convenience. Like, that's the number one goal and need from their payments providers. Convenience at WISE means first offering a multi-currency account. So especially if you're going to Europe, for example, who's heavily reliant on international bank account numbers, making sure that you can pay and be paid in that currency with a multi-currency account, absolutely crucial, and has been, meant the world to our small businesses. Another huge thing I would flag as well is the necessity of a fast transfer. And this is actually something that disproportionately positively impacts women-owned small businesses who still navigate with trust issues on a global scale, where they're citing certain cultural barriers when they're trying to export to certain markets. Making sure that your customers and your employees trust you with a quick and reliable payment has been business critical, specifically for our women-owned small businesses. So that has been really, really cool to watch and watch develop. And I think, a testament to the importance of faster payments networks in different countries, but also the importance of a reliable transfer and that convenience again. And then finally, on the note of integrations, making sure that whatever payments provider you're utilizing offers different software that you need. So for example, when I used to work for a small business, tell the story all the time, but I was a bookkeeper working in QuickBooks, and of course screwed up when we were going to make an international transfer because I wasn't aware of the different software. The fact that WISE is able to integrate with QuickBooks, so you don't need to jump to different interfaces for your accounting, has been so cool and an awesome product we recently launched, an extension to.
Thank you so much. This has been so wonderful. I've spoken with a lot of small businesses that use tools from each of your companies, and really appreciate you sharing more details about those, as well as just everything that your companies do to prioritize small business growth. And I know we didn't get to everything, but we'll share everything afterwards. But at this time, I'm going to hand things over to Abigail Lance with the Department of U.S. Commerce. To moderate our final panel. And I know just for everyone in the audience, if you can stay a few extra minutes, feel free, because we're definitely going to go over a little bit. But thank you very much. And Abby, the floor is yours.
Great, and it's so great to see everyone. It's really exciting to have you participate in Startup Global Women. My name is Abigail Lance. I'm an international trade specialist working with the Trade Promotion Coordinating Committee Secretariat, which is a mouthful, and also a small team over at the International Trade Administration. We coordinate the Department of Commerce's interactions with the 20 federal agencies involved in international trade. During this panel, we'll hear from government representatives who manage trade promotion programs and resources that small businesses interested in going global can take advantage of. We know that on average, firms that export earn higher revenues and employ more workers, pay higher wages, and dedicate more resources towards innovation and staying competitive, both on a domestic and global stage. As your businesses grow through exporting, that growth positively impacts the US economy as a whole as well, which means that there are a host of government-provided resources that seek to support small businesses in their exporting efforts by providing counsel to navigate barriers that impede business owners and entrepreneurs from taking that first step towards exporting. Across the US government, federal agencies are focusing on helping smaller firms enter the export pipeline through the creation of targeted resources and supports. So today we'll hear from 3 trade promotion, intellectual property, and export assistance experts from the US Commercial Service, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and the U.S. Small Business Administration, respectively. And they'll discuss the resources that their bureaus and agencies provide, especially those targeted towards small businesses and early stage entrepreneurs. And they'll also discuss how businesses they've worked with in the past have used federal government assistance to overcome common hurdles to exporting, such as financing and networking abroad. So with that, I'd like to start off by asking each of you to introduce yourself and your organization and describe the first steps that a women-owned business can take to get in touch with your organization and to take advantage of the fantastic resources and support you offer to businesses that are interested in going global. So I'll start with Ludwika.
Thanks, Abby, and it's so nice to be with you all. My name is Ludwika, and I'm with our U.S. Commercial Service Office in San Francisco. And here I work with startups in the San Francisco Bay Area. And a little bit about us. So the U.S. Commercial Service Office is part of the Department of Commerce, and we're basically the global business development arm agency supporting U.S. companies with their international sales. And we have about 100 offices across the US and over 100 around the world in 75 markets that can be a resource. And more specifically, we support companies with their international sales through consultations on your global growth strategies. We connect you with partners and clients and regulators around the world. And we can also advocate on your behalf with decision makers when you bid on foreign government procurement. And thank you, Dr. Lai, also for the earlier shout out. And how can you get in touch with us? So you can email me, and I think Jamaica is going to share my contact information, or I'll plug in our website where you can connect directly to the office near your city and your state.
Great, thank you so much. I'll turn to Christine next.
Great, thanks everybody. Thanks Abby, and thanks everybody for joining this afternoon. I really want to say thank you to the small businesses and the ecosystem partners that have taken time out of their busy days to join this webinar. My name is Christine Brown. I'm the Director of Trade Policy in the Small Business Administration's Office of International Trade, also a mouthful. I'm sure many of you are familiar with SBA, but SBA empowers entrepreneurs and small business owners with the resources and support they need to help start, grow, and expand their businesses and recover from declared disasters. In the last couple of years, it's been very focused on helping people survive and then recover from the pandemic. My office, the Office of International Trade, our mission is to enhance the ability of small businesses to compete in the global marketplace. And we have a wide range of programs and services to do this, but they generally fall into three baskets. We have advice and counseling, we have grants, and we have loans or loan guarantee programs. I'm just going to highlight a couple here on places where to get started. On the advice and counseling front, I'd really encourage people to visit our Trade Tools website. It's a one-stop shop for small businesses interested in exporting and importing, and has information from anything from developing an export plan, or how to develop an international e-commerce business, complying with customs and other requirements, protecting your intellectual property rights. What steps can you take? What things should you consider, as well as other considerations in your trade journey. Also, we have an international trade hotline to get answers and guidance related to international trade. SBA has a lot of resources, but as this panel demonstrates, we're not the only agency here. So we also connect folks to other federal agencies, as well as state and local resources, including SBA resource partners, including women's business centers. And then finally, I just want to mention in this intro that our grant program is the State Trade Expansion Program, or STEP. STEP works through participating U.S. states and territories to provide grants to assist small businesses in their export development. And those grants can be used by small businesses to help reimburse certain expenses related with finding international buyers, entering foreign markets, internationalizing a website or other e-commerce things, to name a few. And I know Ludwika just talked a little bit about the services of the commercials that the commercial service has, and the grant program can also be used to cover some of those, which is a great starting point for small businesses, because we know there are a lot of expenses, and small businesses just don't have that margin to deal with the sort of startup costs. So wanted to mention that. There's probably a lot more, but I'm going to save it for a little later and hand it back to Abby.
Thank you so much, Christine. And Brandon, would you like to close out?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Brandon Ritchie. I'm with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And at the USPTO, as we call it, we help with helping entrepreneurs and businesses protect their intellectual property. So entrepreneurs that have a business and products or services, you want to protect your name of your business. You want to protect your product, your names of your products and your services. And if you're an inventor, then certainly you would want to get patent for your inventions before going out into the world. And one thing that we can help with is we have lots of resources on our website on understanding the process. It can be complicated, but we have a number of resources there to walk, especially first-time entrepreneurs and inventors, through the process. We have links from our main page to resources in your area that we provide. We have over 80 libraries throughout the United States where we have trained them on how to search for trademarks and patents, so that when you have a business and you have a name for it, you want to, or a product, and you want to go and you want to protect that before you spend, excessive amounts of legal fees doing that. We have folks throughout the 50 states that can help. They can search the current database and see if that name has been used before, in which case you might want to go back and rename. But that's a tremendous resource. And we have regional offices throughout the country that also are there to help, and in addition to a number of other resources. We can also educate folks and guide them through the process of applying for patent protection or trademark protection in other countries. Patent and trademark protection is specific to the country. So if you get a US trademark, you get protection within the United States and its territories. If you want protection in another country, you have to go to their trademark office and get that trademark registered there as well in order to have protection there. So it seems labor intensive there because you have to go to all these different countries to get protection, but there are ways that you can file simultaneously in multiple countries for both trademark protection and patent protection. And we have resources to help folks guide them through that process. You certainly would want to have your names and products and inventions protected, before going overseas and exporting, because of the risk of infringement and copycat and counterfeit goods. So we can talk about that more too, but we have a number of resources. We also have folks who are just starting. They can get referred to those clinic programs at law schools to help file and prosecute, as they call it, the patent or trademark application. So number of resources, and we can provide the link to that. But that's our mission, to help people protect their intellectual property.
Great, thank you so much, Brandon. And to everyone listening in on the call, I encourage you to post questions in the chat that you think would be helpful, and I'll call on them throughout the panel. So the next question I'd like to talk about is, even though we know that businesses that export have better bottom lines and are more resilient to financial downturns, sometimes that first hurdle of exporting really is the upfront cost, which we've talked a lot about today in terms of financing challenges and access to capital. Would any of you like to speak to financial programs and grants that can help minimize the cost of growing a business through international expansion?
Sure, Abby, I'll go first. I think I mentioned in my intro that one of the things that the SBA's Office of International Trade has is a loan. We deal with, export financing. And we have a suite of 3 export loan programs for U.S. small businesses to support their export needs, ranging from working capital and purchase order financing through capital expenditures and term financing needs. We work with lending institutions where the lending institution provides the loan, but SBA provides the lenders with a 90% guarantee, which really decreases the lending risk. I want to flag here that we have export finance managers that are across the country usually co-located with the U.S. Export Assistance Center, that provide no-cost counseling to help small businesses figure out which loan product was going to work best for you, and then also how to position you with the lending institution. And so I'd really encourage folks who are interested in export financing to reach out. Again, you can reach out to our hotline. We'll connect you with our local export finance manager. I see Jamaica just put in the link so you can find that local person. That said, we know that not all businesses are going to be ready necessarily for a traditional export loan. And if you're just starting out a new business, a microloan might be the right place to start. The previous panel talked a little bit about CDFIs and CDCs. And those microloans, the ones through SBA, can also be used for trade. And I would encourage you to explore the microloans through SBA's certified development companies. We also have a new pilot called the Community Advantage Loans. This is going to be providing more capital than a traditional microloan and help businesses get closer to accessing traditional bank loans. Women's business centers and other nonprofits are really taking the lead for SBA in this pilot to get small businesses sort of up and ready. And then I'd finally mention that SBA's resource partners, such as women's business centers, are also going to be aware of additional resources and can assist small businesses in determining what lenders or what financing options might work best for them, and can really position you and with a particular approach. A number of our women's business centers also have some sort of a number of them also have funding mechanisms that are part of the center. It's sort of like a joint. It's sort of they do the counseling and the mentorship and the training, but they also sometimes have these financial arms as well. So I just wanted to start there.
Great, that's fantastic. And we know that protecting IP can be a problem for early stage companies, and as a result of systemic discrimination, women often have a harder time protecting their IP on average. So this question is directed at Brandon. When should a company that's interested in exporting really start worrying about IP?
Any business that is starting should worry about IP pretty early on, because one reason is what we talked about just a minute ago, which is it's really important to secure a federal registration for your trademark, for the name of your company or your products or services. And because sometimes the best name, a company thinks they have the best name, and then they file the trademark application and they find that it's already been taken, because it's a first come first serve or first to file system for the most part, with some exceptions. And so one of the first things you're going to want to do as a business is develop your name of your products and your company, and then get protection for that name. And if for some reason it's already been registered in the trademark registry, you're going to want to then resolve that issue pretty early on in your business, because it's a fundamental piece. And same thing for products and services. What you call them and the goodwill that you want to build on that starts with having a name that you know is yours and that you can use. And in the United States, and then in each country where you want to do business, because that name could be taken in some of those countries. And there's processes you can always try to work with the owners of those in other countries and negotiate and things like that. But often that will block your trademark registration in other countries. So it's really important to think about that early on, and the same with patents, because that, for businesses that focus on invention, and I know that we heard from Dr. Lay earlier, that protection is so important, because what that does is it gives you the right to exclude others from making, selling, importing that product for a limited time. For patents, it's 20 years from the date of you file your patent application. Trademarks are indefinite. As long as you're using them, you can keep renewing trademarks forever. But patents are limited. So you want to be able to hit the ground running with your best punch and make your best impact for your company with your patents. And so seeking that patent protection is really important, and also to secure investment, to have that patent in your portfolio can help attract investment and in your business. So early on, short answer.
Good to know. Another thing that often women entrepreneurs struggle with is access to robust professional networks, particularly if they're re-entering the workforce after a period of time or just starting out. I'd love to hear about how women business owners can leverage your organizations to build her professional network and thereby build her business.
I'm happy to contribute on that.
Great.
So with commercial service, we would love to, and we thrive on bringing people together, and we can really help you build your international network locally, virtually, especially through the pandemic and in person. And we host a lot of events, both virtual and in person, across your state, across the United States, and globally, supporting a lot of the business leaders where you can make global connections in your respective industries in global markets. So it's very useful and effective. And in addition to our own activities across our worldwide network, we also work very closely locally with international business organizations. So we can be a multiplier to other business-focused international network in your city and state. And we also work with both the city and state governments with their international arm. So in many ways, we're a multiplier depending on your international interest and industry focus. So I would encourage you to get in touch with the closest office near you.
Yeah. And I know I've talked about women's business centers a couple times already. They're part of the SBA Resource Partner Network. And these resource partners provide free counseling and mentoring and low-cost training. The women's business centers are uniquely focused on women, clearly, and underserved populations, and they're really working to help small businesses, to help women entrepreneurs and small businesses sort of overcome some of the challenges that they would have out there. I think earlier somebody was talking about sort of that balance, that childcare balance. And so one of the things that I know a lot of the women's business centers are doing are, I mean, not just through the pandemic, but prior to that, trying to find different ways of connecting online. They do a lot of things outside of normal business hours and try to be really creative. A lot of the women's business centers also they recognize sort of childcare needs. So they'll think about when they're bringing together a cohort of women, like what do the women do with their children? So they're really uniquely focused on that kind of thing. I will say over the last year, the women's business centers have increased by like 25% because SBA is really we recognize how important women are to our economy and our economic recovery. And these centers are really focused. I mean, one of the things that I think WBCs have done really well is focusing on internet education, e-commerce, and credit education. So I'd really encourage you to reach out to your local center. It's a great way to sort of meet other women entrepreneurs and get that support through the system, as well as bounce ideas off of them. And then, of course, you can also use the small business development centers or the SCORE mentors. And we have a new community navigator program that's really focusing on underserved populations. So those are all different resources that I mentioned. I will also note that SBA has a new online learning platform called Ascent. It's designed for women entrepreneurs and focuses on starting and scaling businesses. So if you're looking for training that you can do at your own pace and at your own time, that's a great way of doing it.
I'll just add too that at the PTO, we have on our website on the homepage, there are a number of links in a box that says new to IP ? And that can be used by people who are new to IP or who are not new to IP. There's a tremendous amount of resources there. Again, our focus is the intellectual property. I say IP, that's what I mean. And one of the links says USPTO in your region. And so if you click on that, it brings up a map of the United States and you can select your state and then it will bring up all the resources we discussed earlier in your state. And one of those resources is that, and it's still a work in progress, but we have populated it with find local inventor groups in your area. And so then the ones that we know of, and our regional offices continue to populate those lists, it can direct you to groups in your area that you can meet with and connect with to network on intellectual property issues. You could find mentors there, talk about others about the challenges of and the opportunities with filing patent and trademark applications. So again, that's on that website under the New to IP tab. And we have other tabs too, Inventor and Entrepreneur Resources, and we have one called Access Our Free Services, but specific to the networking issue, that's under USPTO in your region, where we try to gather the local resources that we provide or that we know of, like networking groups.
Fantastic. And unfortunately, we've come to time. So thank you all for participating in the panel, and thanks to everyone for coming today to hear about the wealth of federal resources that we have to offer. And with that, I'll turn it back to Jamaica.
Thank you so very much. And thank you so much to our speakers as well for joining us for this very important and timely conversation. We thank you for all the work that you do to help elevate the importance of supporting women's entrepreneurship and the role of trade in helping create opportunities for women's economic empowerment. So to those in the audience, thank you for joining us. You'll receive a follow-up email from the Global Innovation Forum with a link to the recording, more information about our speakers and all of the resources and programs that were discussed today. We appreciate you joining us and look forward to staying in touch. Thank you very much.